Hey guys, it's Elon from Inside Fighting, and I get asked a lot, like, what's a great supplemental art for this art, and what's a perfect pairing for this art? So in this video, we're going to deep dive a little bit into that. We're going to look at some popular martial arts and some less popular martial arts, and see why it just feels right when you train them with another art. Let's go.
Pow, pow, inside fighting, yeah, dangerous martial arts. Pow, pow, ooh, ah.
Hey guys, before I get started, if you want to support the channel, go to InsideFightingStore.com, check out the instructionals, check out the merch. If you get an instructional, you don't like it, don't feel like you benefited from it, I will refund you, but there's some good knowledge on there. I like to believe, at least, considering I made them, so yeah, go check it out. And if not, just like and subscribe and leave a comment below, because that helps the algorithm. So we're going to jump into some of the obvious ones right off the bat. You know, when you train karate, it feels natural to go into judo. And before I answer these questions, like, I'm always going to name the first martial art, and I just gave it away what the second one is, but try and guess. Like, even pause the video and be like, if I mention Muay Thai, what would the next martial art that I would pair with it be? Make it a game for yourselves and leave comments below, because I think that's an interesting way to do this. Let's see if we're in agreement. So karate and judo, why does it feel so right? Well, there's a couple of reasons. If you look at the body mechanics of karate compared to some other striking systems, karate is very upright and very kind of rotational to the hip. Like, if you look at the way you learn to throw a punch, and I've always said that, that if you look at this motion is very much like grabbing a gi and torquing someone and then throwing them to the ground. There's a lot of gi-centric movements in karate, in the forms, in the kata, that are actually takedowns. And it doesn't matter what style of karate you're training. You could train Shotokan. I thought about this. I'm like, maybe it's judo and Kyokushin. No, it's judo and karate. The movements in karate are naturally cohesive with judo. Coincidentally, they're both Japanese martial arts. I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but if you look at the rotational aspects, the full range of motion aspects, and the way judo guys commit also is very much like how karate guys might overcommit to a punch in form or in training, which is not in application. You look at Kyokushin guys, they get much tighter. But you look at Shotokan guys, they do have this extreme extension. It's a very similar kind of concept to judo, which has those same extended rotational arms as you're turning to take someone down. And again, a lot of the forms have movements that directly correlate to judo movements, in my opinion. Just a very natural kind of cohesion of two martial arts, and it feels right. And that's what we're talking about today. Why it feels right, and if it feels right. So Muay Thai, take a guess on what I think goes great with Muay Thai. Well, my answer is, oddly enough, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And I know that's a weird one, because these are like two different parts of the world. They're totally disconnected from each other. But I'm going to explain why. Muay Thai has a very strong clinch. If you've ever been in a real high-level Muay Thai guy's clinch, it's very different than almost any other form of grappling that you'll experience. And so I don't know if Muay Thai guys need to supplement with a system that's going to take them away from their comfort zone, already clinching, kneeing, and damaging. In other words, judo is great, but is it where a Muay Thai guy should spend his time? He's already in the clinch a lot. He doesn't wear a gi. And even if you look at wrestling, how much time does wrestling spend on the ground compared to something like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? Muay Thai already has takedowns, trips. I know people don't realize that, but learning how to snap down from there is something you're going to pick up from BJJ anyway. You'll get the basics. But when you combine BJJ with it, you look at a lot of these knees that you're throwing in the clinch. You look at a lot of the positions you get into in Muay Thai. In a worst case scenario, you get sacrifice thrown onto your back as you're throwing a knee. The guard is a perfect place to train from and to fight from. So I could just see Muay Thai guys ending up on their back in these exchanges more than some other martial arts. And I do think that ground fighting specifically, like BJJ, is excellent. All right, I have to cheat here. I promised myself I wouldn't double up on martial arts. That was part of the game I was trying to play with myself. But for Sanda, I have to put BJJ as well, because Sanda is such a cohesive system of striking to takedown. And the only place it's lacking in that combat sports world is on the ground. So I'm cheating. I'm putting Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for Sanda as well also. Apologies for that. But the exact same logic applies. You look at Sanda guys, they really have their own method of striking into takedowns that I almost feel it's completely unnecessary to train another takedown style. It's so seamless and transitional and beautiful. why mess with it? But they end up on the ground, and that's an area they don't train much. Just supplementing some Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu would be excellent in that environment. Next one up, boxing. What's your guess? Well, for me, the best thing with boxing, and again, it just feels right, is wrestling. I would say specifically freestyle wrestling. There's something about using your hands to be really fast and then changing levels and shooting in. I'd also argue that the power generation in terms of covering distance from wrestlers and boxers overlap very well. You look at a good boxer, they can go from point A to point B extremely fast. You look at a good wrestler, they go from point A to point B extremely fast. The difference is one is putting something in your face, the other one is maybe putting something in your face and then going under your body, shooting it. Freestyle wrestling style. I think that those two go extremely well together, and we've seen that in MMA. This is just a proven synergy of martial arts. There is also something about not having to worry about yourself kicking, not being kicked, but you actually throwing a kick that allows freestyle wrestling to shine a little more because you're so focused on your hands in the person's face that your lower body can change levels at any time. So if you're not thinking about kicking, you're thinking about changing levels and exploding forward. Maybe the simplicity of that actually works in your favor. So there's just a nice overlap there, in my opinion, between boxing and wrestling. Now, the reason I look left all the time is because my screen is here and that's where my notes are. So ignore that, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry that I'm not staring at the camera today. The next one is Wing Chun. This one's going to surprise people, I think. What's my pairing for Wing Chun? Well, I'm going with Aikido, ladies and gentlemen. In my short time experiencing Wing Chun, and I'm wearing a Wing Chun shirt today, right here, my VLMA. Milos, shout out to you, as always. Amazing martial artist. But in my time training it, I realized that there are a lot of positions where I end up with my wrist near the other person's wrist and moving with their energy. And a natural flow and extension and complement to that motion and that movement seems like Aikido. Whereas Wing Chun can come very hard and forward, Aikido would allow you in some of those positions where you're starting to get trapped up and trapping with someone in the Chi Sao and all these sensitivity and tactile environments where there's connection to start feeling wrists even more. I think that's the real benefit of Aikido anyways, the wrist lock. So if there could be a cohesion between Wing Chun and Aikido, I actually think it's a very interesting mix that's often not looked at. And I think it would actually take your Aikido and make it very effective right away. Wing Chun guys are very good at ending up in the situation where Aikido is most useful, which again is wrist-to-wrist contact, sensitivity. So it would really allow someone's Aikido to shine training Wing Chun and vice versa. What do I got next here? Ladies and gentlemen? Combat Sambo. This one's going to be a hard one to figure out what I put. But the pairing for Combat Sambo, ladies and gentlemen, I gave you enough time to think of your own, is Filipino martial arts. Why do I say this? Well, specifically Kali Eskrima, something like Doce Pares, Illustrissimo, Balintawak, Pekiti Tirsha. If you train Combat Sambo, you've got all your bases covered typically. In terms of combat sports, in terms of even self-defense, unarmed, and they even do cover some armed things as well. Combat Sambo is a very all-inclusive system. So FMA is one of the few systems that really gives you a tool set that's outside the box. That'll change the way you move and also get you more aware of certain angles that I don't see used as much in Combat Sambo. So I think that would be an incredibly unique mix. If you get a really good Combat Sambo guy, teach him some of the empty hand drills from Filipino martial arts, it would allow him in those situations to pull off things that I don't think he'd normally be able to pull off. It would also give him an entirely new skill set with weapons, which would be incredibly impressive. You would just be a really complete martial artist. Sorry for the beat there. Next one, Sabat. Well, okay, you had your 3 seconds to think of a pairing, or you pause this video. So with Sabat, I chose shoot fighting. My only experience with shoot fighting is I was at the Danilo Santo Academy for a few years. I used to help teach Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu out there, and I would train also in their other classes. They had classes going all the time, and there was an instructor there, Yuri Nakamura, who was incredible. He was a shoot fighting guy, JKD guy, did a bunch of stuff. Really well-rounded martial artist, but he was so light on his feet and so slick with his movements. And if you look at Savat guys, and there were Savat guys also at Santo Academy, there was a certain overlap in terms of their movement, in terms of the style of movement, if that makes sense. But what I found is that if you looked at both of these styles, they both complement each other in the way that they give each other what the other style doesn't have. I think that Savat is incredibly advanced in its kicking approach and its movement approach, and I think that shoot fighting has almost the identical kind of philosophy to movement, but with an approach to takedown and continuing on the ground. Yuri has a very cool kind of ground flow that he would teach, which is like a series of submissions that lead you to new positions. I just see those two going really, really well together. Now, before I said combat sambo, I'm going to jump into sports sambo. I think there's a style that complements sports sambo incredibly well. And it's a weird one, so take your guess. Well, here's my answer. Dutch kickboxing. Why do I think these two go so well together? Dutch kickboxing is probably the most aggressive style of kickboxing or even stand-up fighting that I've experienced. There was always forward pressure. It's like Kyokushin, but on like with head punches on steroids. Like it just, the guys don't know how to spar light. They go for each other. This is just my experience with Dutch kickboxers. And they really go in there in their training to learn to fight forward aggression, forward aggression, forward aggression, destroy, destroy, destroy. Sambo, out of all the grappling styles I've trained, had a very also forward aggressive mindset. Grab, get the throw, damage on the ground. Grab, get the throw, damage on the ground. Now this is true of judo too. They're very explosive. You touch, you have to throw. But there was something about the forward pressure in Sambo that was a little bit more aggressive, and on the ground they seemed more aggressive as well. Maybe it's the whole leg lock thing that they just really attack your legs. But that was just my experience, and I think those two have a very unique unity that you don't see very often. I think Dutch kickboxing would get you in the pocket where Sambo would just shine. It would just do really well from there, and your takedowns would come more naturally because you'd be damaging someone so bad on the way, and they would cover up, and that's when you just grab them and launch them. And I mean, just really nice mix. Okay, we got another one here. Choi Le Foot. Choi Le Foot. Choi Le Foot? Oh God, I can't pronounce these words. Anyway, I just trained with John Y. Very nice guy out here in Florida, but he's a Choi Le Foot guy and Wing Chun guy. And I think, oddly enough, and I'm going to give my answer now, that Shuai Zhao is an excellent style to pair with Choi Le Foot. I trained with Matt Gelfand. He was my neighbor. We would just train together all the time. He was a Shuai Zhao guy, competed. Talented, talented martial artist. Matt, if you're watching, shout out, my guy. Shout out. But I just think there's a cohesion there of the big motions of Choi Le Foot. Again, kind of similar to Dutch kickboxing and Sambo, to getting into the pocket, into like these kind of full body takedowns that Choi Le Foot does. Matt had an incredible way of kind of just controlling one part of your body and then just putting his hand somewhere, and it was enough to take you down. I think if you look at the big motions of Choi Le Foot and the aggressive forward pressure, it just naturally leads to those kind of positions. I just think it's a unique unity again, and I think it would be very, very effective. Okay, next one, Lethwei. Here's my answer. The weirdest of all and the last one we're doing for the day. I think with Lethwei, Krav Maga or some kind of pure self-defense system makes the most sense. Lethwei guys, in my opinion, are the most brutal of any combat sports athlete. I know I said Dutch kickboxing guys are aggressive, but not brutal in the way that Lethwei guys are. Lethwei guys literally crack you with their head. They don't have gloves on. They're going full force. You can get up after you've been knocked down. It's just really a bar fight with technique in the most brutal way. So what is the thing you can give these guys? Sure, you can give them Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but if you taught a guy this tough some basic self-defense scenarios, pre-fight training, all that kind of stuff, they become an unstoppable force. Like, Dave LeDuc is a monster. And if you taught him, like, hey, this is situational awareness over here. These are 3 guys attacking you now. Lethwei guys are the few of all styles equipped to be able to deal with, like, the reality of a chaotic situation where someone, like, 5 guys would be hitting you. You've been hit in the head bare knuckles so many times and been headbutted so many times. I think self-defense would really apply itself perfectly there because you've got the combat sports aspect out the way. You've been hit in the head a million times. You know what bare knuckle really is, right? So it just transitions very well to Krav Maga. You'd be probably one of the toughest Krav Maga guys in the world if you train Lethwei. Anyway, this was just like a fun little video. Not meant to be taken overly serious. So if you're in the comment section, you're like, how dare you say Lethwei should go with Krav Maga? Guys, I did this because I was, again, trying to only use one martial art, meaning I can't go back to BJJ for Lethwei. I can't go back to FMA for shoot fighting, whatever it is. I had to use it where I used it, And I think these are an interesting mix of martial arts. So if you're out there and you train one of these, maybe this will give you some insight into training another martial art that could supplement or complement it. Hope you enjoyed. Like and subscribe.